The Syrian interim president arrives in Amman for talks with Jordan's king. Egypt's foreign ministry rejects proposals that bypass Egypt and Arab stance on Gaza's temporary administration. It's exactly 8 p.m. car local time and you're watching Q News. We begin tonight's bulletin with the latest developments in Syria. Syrian interim President Ahmed al-Shara has arrived in Jordan, where he has received by King Abdullah. Al-Shara leader will hold talks with King Abdullah II to discuss strengthening ties between the neighboring countries. Al-Shara is expected to engage in wide-ranging discussions on border security and ways to expand commercial relations. This visit marks the interim president's third foreign trip, following visits to Saudi Arabia and Turkey since assuming power. King Abdullah of Jordan has reaffirmed his country's support for Syria's reconstruction efforts, emphasizing the importance of a political process that includes all Syrian factions. He emphasized the importance of ensuring Syria's unity, security, and stability. King Abdullah also underscored the significance of coordinating with Damascus to address border security challenges, facilitating the voluntary and safe return of Syrian refugees, and reaffirmed Jordan's commitment to Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Jordan has welcomed the Syrian National Dialogue Conference and its outcomes, calling it a significant step toward rebuilding Syria on foundations that ensure its unity, sovereignty, and stability. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry emphasized its support for Syria's transitional phase, aiming to pave the way for a sovereign, free, and stable Syria. Jordan reiterated its readiness to assist Syria in the reconstruction process through a Syrian-led, inclusive dialogue that guarantees the rights of all Syrians. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has discussed Syria's stability, Lebanon's political developments, and the necessity of combating terrorism in the region. This took place during his meeting with the leader of Iran's National Wisdom Movement, Ammar al-Hakim, where Abdulati reaffirmed Egypt's support for Iraq's security and stability while highlighting progress in bilateral relations. They discussed joint cooperation programs, the Egypt-Iraq-Jordan trilateral collaboration, and ongoing efforts to sustain the Gaza ceasefire. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul-Ghait has strongly condemned the recent Israeli airstrikes and attacks on Syrian territories, describing them as reckless provocations. Abul-Ghait stated that these actions exploit Syria's political transition to establish illegal and unlawful realities. He emphasized that Israel's occupation of Syrian land violates international law and called on the international community to condemn this unprovocative aggression. The Arab League expressed solidarity with Syria in facing Israeli aggressions. And for more analysis, we now move on to Riham Morsi in our newsroom. Riham.
Thank you so much, Rana. For further analysis, we're joined from Amman by the Professor of Strategic Studies at Al Hussein bin Talal University, Hassan Al-Daja. Thank you so much for joining us here on Qnews. Firstly, sir, let's start off by asking, what are the key strategic interests that drives Jordan's engagement with Syria's interim leadership, and how might this visit reshape regional dynamics?
Good evening to you and your viewers. And I think that this visit comes in a very delicate time, particularly as the variables in the region, in the north hidden to Turkey and in the southern Syria by the Israeli occupation forces occupying some areas in the southern of Syria. In addition, that several fights between Jordan and Syria that were suspended since the previous regime, specifically the security and political dossiers and the concerning the security files that would include the drug trafficking and terrorism. Last month there was a great storm of drug trafficking through which that 150 networks that include to 120 to 150 individuals. So some of them were in the industry and transportations, and the others carrying guns. And that was since 2020 till 2024, around 1,200 traffics. Following in the Al-Assad regime's fall, there was some sort of an increase, but it retained slightly, particularly at the beginning of this year. But the border guards have managed to eliminate these terrorist and groups as well as the drug trafficking groups. So this is a very important issue that was addressed by the Deputy Prime Minister of Jordan to Syria in December of past year, and the visit of Shibani in Jordan that were discussed to form security committees specifically in the border security, along in addition to the issue of the drug trafficking, terrorism, and the water dispute between Syria and Jordan, in addition to the economic ties between Jordan to Syria and vice versa, through the Jordan borders into Syria, in addition to the Syrian trucks that come into different Gulf countries. These files along with the increase of the Israeli attacks against military spots, particularly the Syrian army, as what happened yesterday in the southern of Syria, that would push the collaboration and coordination between the Arabs.
Yes. Sir, yes, sir. If you could tell us a bit about the role that Amman could play in facilitating Syria's political transition. You talked about the close relations and a shared border. Tell us a bit about the role that Amman could play in facilitating Syria's political transition, in addition to support when it comes to the reconstruction efforts.
Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Jordan, Mr. Al-Safadi, through his visit in Syria in the past year, the issue of us supporting Jordan in the controlling in the Syrian regime through the reconstruction and the assistance and facilitating the services, as Jordan contributed in the reforms of the electrical grids, and we've seen these some of Jordanian companies made lots of reforms into the grids. In addition, that Jordan would fuel Syria by gas and energy through the Egyptian and Jordan gas line, pipeline, in addition to providing Syria the surplus of the electrical Jordanian grids. Secondly, with respect to the reconstruction, all is ready to contribute in the reconstruction in Syria that require efforts, regional and international and Arab efforts, as the size of the destruction is very large, that would require the contribution of many countries to assist the Syrian people in the reconstruction and the speed in the space of security, along with other services such as health and education to the Syrian people. As you know, Jordan is hosting more than 1,004,000 Syrian refugees. Some are registered in the commission, in the High Commission of Refugees, and some actually entered Jordan with different procedures rather than asking for refugees.
Okay, so you spoke a bit about the idea of like issues when it comes to smuggling. So what are the main challenges for both countries when it comes to facing border security and in addition to expanding commercial relations?
Can you?
Yes, sure. You spoke, sir, about the idea that there is an issue when it comes to the border, that it's porous and there might be smuggling issues. What challenges can both countries face when it comes to strengthening border security as well as expanding commercial relations?
I think that the drug trafficking was a very big issue for Jordan that required several efforts that around 150 for drug trafficking networks that include 120 and 150 individuals. But after the fall of Assad's regime and the non-presence of the Iranian affiliated militia, along with the force quadrum that's responsible of Maher al-Assad, so the issue has decreased. But it still having a great concern for Syria, that wish to get the assistance of the drug smuggling. As you know, that the Syrian regime and state isn't capable to have full control of several areas in the southern, particularly with the presence of the Israeli occupation forces in areas such as al-Suwaida, which is in a hot spot of drug smuggling. So I think Jordan and Syria, through the formed committees of such mutual visits, to have some sort of joint committees to confront all these operations. But the issue would remain due to the non-presence of the Iranian militia to operate the drug smuggling. So will be in the normal size that would actually happens in several countries, as no countries in the whole world would eliminated the issue of drug smuggling completely.
Yes, well, sir, thank you so much for joining us, but unfortunately we're out of time for the segment. That was Professor of Strategic Studies, Dr. Hassan Daja from the Al Hussein bin Talal University. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on Qnews. And now back to you, Rana, in the studio.
And now we move on to the latest developments in Gaza. The Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has firmly rejected any proposals that bypass Egypt's and the Arab stance on Gaza's temporary administration. The ministry reiterated Egypt's unwavering position, calling for Israel's withdrawal from occupied Palestinian territories and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. It warned that partial solutions would only prolong the conflict rather than achieve a lasting resolution. Egypt also stressed that Gaza, the West Bank and East Jerusalem must be under full Palestinian sovereignty and administration. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has emphasized Egypt's efforts in Gaza ceasefire stabilization and called for increased EU humanitarian aid. This came during his phone call with the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs, Kaya Kallas. Abdulati praised the growing Egypt-EU relations and highlighted the important role the High Representative plays in strengthening this partnership. Abdulati emphasized support for Egypt's recovery and reconstruction plans in Gaza. An Egyptian source has revealed that mediators have reached an agreement to release a Palestinian detainees, a process initially scheduled for last week. The release of the detainees will coincide with the return of the bodies of 4 Israeli detainees, all supervised by Egypt. Hamas has stated that the release of the 7th batch of Palestinian detainees will coincide with the return of the bodies of Israeli detainees, as well as the release of Palestinian women and children. They added that their release will follow a new mechanism to ensure the commitment of Israel to its implementation, with the timing of the exchange announcement to come at the appropriate moment. Hamas also mentioned that no proposal has been presented regarding the second phase, despite their readiness and willingness to proceed with all stages of the agreement. Israel has reached an agreement with mediators for the return of the bodies of 4 Israeli detainees held in Gaza. When asked if such a deal has been reached, the spokesman for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office responded yes, but did not provide any immediate details. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has expressed hope that the upcoming Arab summit in Cairo will contribute to resolving the Gaza crisis. During a press conference after meeting with Qatar's Emir, Lavrov warned that the displacement of Palestinians would turn the region into a ticking time bomb and undermine the two-state solution. He also criticized
с Хамас и с Ливаном, и которые...
The Jerusalem Governorate has warned of an impending escalation by Israeli occupation forces as the holy month of Ramadan approaches. In a statement, the Governorate stated that the Israeli authorities intend to impose a series of provocative and discriminatory measures against Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan. The Governorate called for the lifting of restrictive measures and the guarantee of the freedom of worship at Al-Aqsa Mosque. Scores of Israeli settlers under the protection of Israeli occupation forces have stormed the compound of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Israeli settlers carried out provocative tours and performed Talmudic rituals in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Israeli authorities, including far-right ministers and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government, have increasingly expressed their intention to take over the compound and build there. The Palestinian news agency has reported that the Israeli occupation forces have continued their aggression on the city of Tulkarm and its camp for the 31st consecutive day, as well as the Noor al-Shams camp for the 18th day. Israeli forces ordered the demolition of 11 homes in the Noor al-Shams camp, giving residents only 3 hours to retrieve their belongings. Troops raided homes in Jabal al-Shalin, forcing families at gunpoint and deployed military reinforcements, establishing barricades in residential areas. The aggression has displaced 17,000 people, destroyed infrastructure and blocked aid deliveries. Meanwhile, the Jabra checkpoint has remained closed for the 19th consecutive day, isolating Tulkarm for nearby towns. At least 50 Palestinians, including children and former detainees, have been arrested across the occupied West Bank. The Monitor said that the arrests and field investigation took place in the governorate of Al-Khalil, Tulkarm, Qalaqlaya, Nablus, Ramallah, Beit Lahem, Jericho, and Tubas. As part of its large-scale military incursions into Jenin and Tulkarm, the Israeli army has systematically engaged in arrests and field investigations affecting dozens of families. Ireland has warned of situation in the West Bank amid ongoing Israeli aggression. Irish Minister of State for International Development and the Irish diaspora, Richmond, warned of the deteriorating situation in the West Bank. He added that the ceasefire agreement must be fully implemented in all its stages. Richmond also stressed that only a two-state solution can bring lasting peace. Moving on to Moscow, where the Kremlin has stated that preparations were being made for expert-level talks between Russia and the United States. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reiterated that there was a mutual understanding between Trump and Putin about the need for an in-person meeting after the preparations, but he noted that no details had been finalized regarding the timing or either the location. He added that the two leaders could speak again by phone if necessary, although there were no current plans for such a call. Peskov also mentioned reports that Ukrainian President Zelensky was expected to visit Trump on Friday. That brings us to the end of today's news bulletin. Here is what we have been covering. The Syrian interim president arrives in Amman for talks with Jordan's king. Egypt's foreign ministry rejects proposals that bypass Egypt and Arab stance on Gaza's temporary administration. And Hamas announces the release of the 7th batch of detainees. This concludes our news bulletin for today. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you very much for watching, and until we meet again tomorrow, it's goodbye.